Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Jedi Modi Sports Betting with myself, Matt Modi. In this video, what we're going to be doing, hammering some bets for the NBA playoffs tonight. So for those of you who have been following me on Pickett or on Twitter at my handle you see on the screen right here, not going to lie to you, the past 3 days have been rough, probably the worst 3-day stretch I've had since I can remember. Luckily, the good part about that is it's a new week and we can move on and try to find and get out of this slump that we are in. So, like I said, you're going to be hammering NBA bets today. For those of you watching this, make sure to click that like button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and then comment. Let me know if you have any feedback, good, bad, ugly, whatever it may be. For the NBA playoff slate tonight, we have two games. The first game, Sixers Nets at 7:30 Eastern, and then we have the late game, a really awesome series between the Warriors and the Kings. That is at 10 p.m. Eastern. Looking at my plays for tonight. So the first thing that I did was I wanted to look and see what the main lines were offered at for each of the games. So you go to oddsjam.com, sports, NBA, click into the game, and it pulls up the screen that we see here. So for the Sixers versus Nets game, I found a play on the Nets spread plus 10.5 at minus 115 odds at BetMGM. So the reason why this is a play is because look at where every other sportsbook prices their main line for this market, right? Every single book prices it at either 10 or 9.5. And the reason why I went with the 10.5 number as opposed to the 9.5 number for the Sixers is because you need to look where the sharp sportsbooks have things priced. Pinnacle, sharpest sportsbook in the world. They have this at Nets plus 10, but they favor the Nets at that number, right? They have that as the more expensive outcome, albeit slightly, but still as the more expensive outcome. So they have the Nets side at minus 106, the Sixers side at minus 104, favoring the Nets at plus 10. And remember, we got it at a half a point better at plus 10.5, at minus 115. Then you look at some other sharp sportsbooks we see here, pricing the Nets at minus 115, the Sixers at minus 105, again, at that plus 10 number. We see that for two sharp sportsbooks. They favor the Nets at plus 10. Then we also see another sharp sportsbook, Circa, price this at 9.5. So really, when you think about it, the value here is on the Nets plus 10.5, minus 115 odds at BetMGM. I also do like this just for regular basketball reasons as well. The Sixers really took over the game because of their shooting, and they set a record for most three-pointers made in a playoff game for the Sixers. Now, obviously, a lot of that had to do with the way the Nets were playing Embiid, right? They aggressively doubled him, which meant that there were shooters open elsewhere. But not every single game are the Sixers shooters going to shoot like that. James Harden probably won't make 7 3-pointers again, right? It's just unlikely that the Sixers shoot as well as they did against in game one as they do in game two. So for that reason, I think that this game is probably going to be a little bit closer than people imagine. So getting the 10.5 point spread in a game that I wouldn't even be shocked if the Nets won straight up or if it was a one possession game, I mean, there represents a lot of value in this play. So for play number one, we are riding with the Nets plus 10, minus 115 odds at BetMGM. I already locked this bad boy in. Next up, in the Warriors versus Kings, I did the same exact thing. I went to the game, checked out the main markets to see if I could find some value anywhere. No value really on the money line or the point spread, but where I did find value, and I admit that this is going to feel quite disgusting, is on the total going under. The play is the Warriors Kings under 241 at minus 113 odds. This would be at BetRivers / Barstool, Unibet, TwinSpires, all of those sports books. You can get this under 241. Again, this is a play that I have already locked in. And I also understand that it just feels gross. Taking an under in a game between the Warriors and Kings where the Warriors just simply can't play defense on the road for whatever reason, and two high-powered offenses that moves at a fast pace. I get it. But at the end of the day, you do have to trust the value. So the total went over in the first game. That doesn't automatically mean it's going to go over in the second game as well. And 241 is just such a high number for a playoff game. And I get it, we're at a new age of the NBA, so you can't compare eras and the total. But even if you just look at the total for this individual year, right? The 241 number is still a crazy high number. and then especially for a playoff game. So we are going to zag and we are going to take the under here, mostly because of the value. That's the most important thing, right? Let's look at where sharp sportsbooks have this price. So remember, we got it under 241. Pinnacle has this at 240. Again, favors the under. They have the under priced at -110, the over at -102, favoring the under. Other sharp sportsbooks have it at 240. Then we see Circa Sports and Circa Vegas, two very sharp sportsbooks, actually have it at 239.5. Now, obviously, the higher these point totals get, the less meaningful the half-point gaps become in between. But this isn't a half-point gap. This is a full point and a half, going from 241 to 239.5 or 240, depending on where you look. Does represent some value. So I get it that this one's going to feel gross and sweaty, but at the end of the day, you just have to ride with the value, and that's what we're going with here. So we're taking the under in the Warriors versus Kings, under 241, -113 odds. Now, those are my two main line plays. Now I have 3 player props for you guys that I also really like. Number 1, we are riding with Tobias Harris over 14.5 points. This is at +120 odds at DraftKings. So this is a play where you go to DraftKings and you have to take the alternate point total because his actual over-under is priced at 13.5, but every single sportsbook heavily favors him going over that 13.5. So we're getting an extra point, but we're getting it for +120 odds. Now, Tobias had a great game in game 1. I think he had 21 points, something like that. And again, the way the Nets play defense, players like Tobias Harris are going to have ample opportunities. Now, I'm not necessarily expecting him to make multiple three-pointers, but the thing with Tobias is he doesn't need to. He could do his little Tobias-y mid-range game and get to 15 points just based off that and a couple free throws. Not that he gets to the line a ton, but he gets to it more than 0 times. So I'm expecting the Nets to play the same style of defense as they did in game 1, where they aggressively double Embiid and just basically hope that, okay, you're not going to shoot as well as you did in game 1. Let's see what happens if you start out in a shooting slump. I think that's what the Nets game plan is going to be. And then they'll just continue that. So Tobias over 14.5 points. Again, he hit it in game 1. I also really like the value here, obviously. Bet Rivers prices it at -108, points bet at -110. DraftKings all the way up at +120. And as I mentioned, every other book prices his point total at 13.5, but they also all heavily favor his over. So there is some value here at +120 at DraftKings. So this is play number 3, my first of 3 player props. So I'm going to have 5 total. The next one that we're locking in is in the Warriors versus Kings. We needed to make sure that we had a player prop for this game as well. And we are locking in Draymond Green to go under 23.5 points, rebounds, assists. This is at +100 odds at FanDuel. So he hit this in game 1 by exactly 1 stat. He had exactly 24 PRA. In this game, we're taking him to go under, +100 odds. I do like the value here, getting it for even money. And just look at where the sportsbooks price it, right? +100 equals 50-50. So it's very easy to tell if you are beating the closing line from the other sportsbooks or not. Just look at where they all have their totals priced at. BetMGM favors the under. Caesars favors the under. Bet365 has it at 50-50. DraftKings favors the under. BetOnline, Betway, Pinnacle all favor the other. The only one that doesn't is Bet Rivers, which has the over favored. But it's the only other book aside from FanDuel that favors the over. So every single sports book is telling you that they think Draymond Green is more likely than not to go under this stat. So they're making it more expensive to buy, which represents value on FanDuel, getting this at +100. And this is play number 4, my second of 3 player props. And then last up, we are riding with Joel Embiid to go under 32.5 points. The logic for this is exactly what I've been saying. I'm expecting the Nets to aggressively double team Embiid. They did it in game 1. Embiid went under in game 1. Yes, you can't necessarily say that it worked, but again, you can't expect the Sixers to shoot as well as they did. So I think Embiid is more than happy to take what the defense is giving him because it just creates so many open shots for his teammates, and he's evolved so much as a passer out of the double teams that I don't think he's going to try and force it like a younger Embiid would have. So getting him to go under 32.5 points, that's just such a high number. And I get why it's this high because, I mean, Embiid led the league in scoring. He just had an absolutely insane year, but he's traditionally not performed as well in the playoffs. His playoff average is in the 20s. So Again, I get that's not perfect because that was a younger Embiid against some better defenses than what the Nets are offering. But also the way the Nets play defense, Embiid's going to be more than happy to pass it. So the minus 105 does represent some value. Looking at where sportsbooks price it, right? Caesars at minus 129, Bet Rivers at minus 126. Then we see minus 125, minus 128. Then if you look at where the other sportsbooks price it, FanDuel actually has their main line at 33.5. Granted, they're heavily favoring the under, but they still have his main line at 33.5. So a little bit of value compared to FanDuel as well. And that's going to be it. So 5 total bets for you guys, 2 main lines, 3 player props in the 2 games that we have tonight. If you're tailing, comment and let me know. Other than that, please remember, as I mentioned, hit me up at my Twitter handle you see on the screen here. Comment on the video, like, subscribe, all that good stuff helps me out a ton. And that's it. So enjoy the games tonight and have a good one.